Welcome to my channel. This is the Ask Lee Wednesday segment. So if you're not sure what's going on, you can ask me a question about magic and witchcraft, spirituality, numerology, all of that stuff in the comments below to the Ask Lee videos, and I will add it to the list and answer them in this particular segment. So today we are doing two follow-up questions from LK and Yollie T about communicating and listening to spirits and working with the pantheons. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Okay, so the first question for LK, and thank you for the super thanks of £5. That was much appreciated. How can we train ourselves to properly listen to spirits? This question is more relevant for people who don't feel as though they have a strong psychic ability. Okay, so this really is for me because I do not have a very strong psychic ability myself. I have always struggled and battled with this, so really it's a case of practice and keep practicing. I have mentioned it in the past that what you'll probably find is as you continue to do the work, it becomes easier and easier. And in most cases, it's almost like it's already there, but we just don't recognize it. So, you may sit down and you may try and have a conversation with a spirit, and the answers are coming, but we're not recognizing it, we're not hearing it, we're not listening. And the reason for that is usually because we've blocked ourselves off. So it really is very much a shift in belief. It may have been knocked out of us when we were children, don't believe in fairies, they're not real. Ghosts are not real, monsters are not real, all of these things that we get taught as we're growing up. Some people do not have that growing up. They don't, their parents may have actually told them that fairies are real and that spirits and gods and goddesses are all real. So it doesn't get removed from them. But at the same time, even in a situation like that, just Western society itself will do it. And we become adults, we get responsibilities, and we have to shift ourselves away from that, and we put up a bit of a wall. But it's that whole shift that happens from this belief that there is something there that we can interact with, that we can communicate with and have a relationship with, as we would if we were children, into adulthood where we've got to take on the responsibilities of life, so we don't have time for that. That needs to just be disregarded. And we need to bring ourselves back into that childlike attitude, and it's very, very difficult because it's been years and years and years of training from that childhood through to your adulthood, of training and ingraining of these beliefs, and to try and get ourselves back to that is very, very difficult. And it can be a long process and a long path, but it can be done. You just need to stick with it, and you just need to keep practicing and keep trying. But what you will find often is that when you are trying to communicate with the spirits and you're trying to listen, you're trying to hear it, in that situation you are actually forcing it. So don't expect anything. Just open yourself up, just ask a question. If you don't get an answer, that's fine. Don't try and force it. You might get the answer later. It may come, the spirit may have actually just stood there in front of you and told you, but you didn't hear it. So they will repeat it later, and it may come in a dream, it may come in information that you find in a book that you're reading. So that information will come across, so keep yourself open to that communication. Not everybody hears spirits, not everybody interacts directly with them. In some situations, that communication comes in, as I said, dreams or information that you find in a book, or somebody says something which you kind of realize is the answer you were looking for. So that communication can happen in many, many, many ways. But if you are referring specifically to hearing with your ears or your psychic ears, because it's actually more of a mental, telepathic type communication that we get, then what you will find, and this especially is in a case of if you are doing a journey and working with a spirit in that sense, of actually journeying to their realm and communicating with them directly in their space, you'll probably find that you will get a communication. But again, they're not all going to communicate with you verbally. It could be through feelings or thoughts or images. But if you do get that verbal mental communication, you may, and quite often we do, I know I did, and I still do sometimes, I doubt that the words that I think I got were actually real, or whether it's just me adding to the interpretation. So what you'll find is that as you continue to do this, you get a particular communication which is completely out of bounds of what you would have thought, what you would have even considered saying, and this kind of makes you realize that it's not your imagination, it is actual communication. But as I said, it takes practice, it takes time, so you just got to be patient, just keep doing it over and over again, and eventually you'll see those little patterns come in. You'll see the way they actually communicate with you, and it's going to be different with you than it is with anybody else. One person may get emotions, another person may get imagery, another person may be purely within dreams, somebody else may hear that verbal telepathic communication. So the way you communicate with spirits is something you have to discover for yourself. So I'm not even sure it has to do with the development of psychic abilities, because as I said, I think those things are already there. It's just that we've forgotten, we've removed ourselves from it, and that whole process of development of psychic abilities then becomes a re-emergence or a realignment or a remembering. It's a remembering of what we are, and the abilities that we have. It's just that they got, through our process of becoming an adult, it got removed, it got pushed out of us, because we had to take on those responsibilities of adult life and making money, paying the bills and all of those things, which is really, really boring, but it's got to be done. Okay, so let me just get to the next question from Yollie T. Okay, from Yollie T, thank you very much. Just a follow-up question. If it happens that the two spirits do not get along when working with them together, will it be possible to work with them separately? If so, how do you approach it? Okay, so this was in regards to a question that Yollie T had regarding working with different pantheons. And in some cases, the spirits that you call in from two different pantheons may get along. In other cases, they're not going to get along. Yes, you can work with them separately. So what you can do is set up two different altars. Now, not everybody has that type of space. You know, when I say set up two different altars, what usually comes to mind is an altar in one room and an altar in another room. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. What you can do is in the same room, on the same wall, have 2 different spaces that are dedicated to the different deities, to the different spirits. And when you want to work with one, you sit in front of that altar. When you want to work with the other one, you move over to the left or the right and you sit in front of that altar. And what you can do, more of a psychological trick, is if you have the 2 altars next to each other, you want to work with this one particular spirit, you light candle and incense which are dedicated to that altar, and that kind of activates the communication. And then you put it out and it deactivates the communication, it shuts it down. So kind of like picking up a telephone, the old telephones, or pressing the green button on your phone to make a call. Until you do that, the call's not connected, and once you press the red button, the call is disconnected. So the lighting the candle and the incense is that connection and disconnection. And then when you want to work with the other spirit, you just light the candle and incense there, and that activates that connection. So you can usually work with it in that regard. This is obviously, regarding your question, is if the 2 spirits do not get along, you then have to work with them separately. But obviously, if you have spirits which do get along, you can put them all on the same altar. You would then light the candle and incense for that collective, or the collection of deities or spirits which you are dedicating that altar to. And you can work with them interchangeably in that regard. But in this case where they don't get along, you do want to try and keep them separate and work with them separately at different times. Okay, so I think that covers that question, and that's it for this week. Actually, that's just quite a quick one today, so we'll get into more questions next week anyway. Have a good one for now. Cheers, bye bye.